Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are really excited about our monthly All Grantee webinar for the ACEs Aware Initiative. We have some wonderful special guests with us today. We're really excited to have them share their experiences with you. And then we also have the Surgeon General with us today, which is a really exciting addition to this session. I'm Jennifer Ryan with the Aurora Health Group, and I think you all know me at this point. Really nice to see all of you today. And we are really excited to hear from 4 of our grantee organizations who are doing really some great work out in the community to help promote the ACEs Aware Initiative and build awareness of ACEs and toxic stress. And we're just really thrilled to hear from each of them today. The format for today's session is going to be hopefully a little bit conversational. We're going to have Dr. Burke Harris will start us off with a couple of opening remarks, because I know you all love to hear kind of where her thinking is today, given her experience over the past more than a year now running the initiative. And then we'll hear from each of our 4 grantees: Cardea Services, the Raise Foundation, Lake Family Resource Center, and First 5 Contra Costa. And they will each give 10 minutes or so of presentation, and Dr. Burke Harris will serve as a reactor. So she'll ask some questions, and we'll open the floor for you all to ask a couple of questions as well. And then we'll go to the next presenter. And then, because we have 90 minutes today, we will also allow time at the end for questions for the grantees and also for Dr. Burke Harris. So without further ado, I would love to turn things over to Dr. Burke Harris for some opening remarks. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Jen. And do you mind if we start by stopping the screen share for a second, just so I can see all the faces of all the folks who are on this call? It's really meaningful to me to be able to see all of you. Because y'all are doing the hard work. And I started my morning today very early with a 6 a.m. Event preparation for the World Innovation Summit on Health, where I had the good fortune to speak with the UN High Commissioner on Human Rights, who's the former president of Chile, as well as the UN Goodwill Ambassador. And, we were all talking about toxic stress and what we are attempting to do, how we're addressing childhood adversity and toxic stress as a global health issue. And it was really funny because as we're in these conversations, the thing that came up was that California is really taking the most innovative, forward-looking, advanced and evidence-based approaches towards addressing these issues. And I have to say that I have been so privileged to have the opportunity to be leading this effort since I've been sworn in as California Surgeon General. But this field leading, world leading work, you guys are the ones who are doing it, right? I can be in Sacramento or working remotely as it is right now. Our teams at the Department of Healthcare Services and at the Office of the California Surgeon General, we can bring you together. We can lift up the best science. We can bring together scientists and lift up the best practices, right? But it's all about what you all are doing. And so this forum is really important to me. It's very meaningful. And the opportunity to hear from you all, what you're learning from each other, what you're able to implement on the ground, and then learn from your innovation, your best practices about what we can continue to move forward and invest in is absolutely critical. I believe deeply that adverse childhood experiences and toxic stress remains one of the greatest public health threats that is facing our state, that is facing our nation, that is facing our globe. And I am really grateful to all of your commitment to advancing the care that we provide and to improving the lives of children, adults, and families in the face who have experienced adversity and who may be experiencing toxic stress. So looking ahead, I'm hoping that we will be able to provide more support to the excellent work that is happening on the ground with really supporting the networks of care, right? So we recognize that ACE screening enables early detection, which is absolutely critical, and that's what the evidence is showing us. But we also know that the purpose of screening is to identify which individuals may be at high risk of having a toxic stress response, right? And apply the interventions that are that can address that. And some of those interventions happen in the clinic, and some of those interventions happen in the community. And so it really takes a network of care to be able to address it. And that is where we'd like to put some resources behind our network of care. So we're hoping to be able to make an announcement about some resources coming out fairly soon. Not too long from now. So this winter, I hope. So with that, let's get to the good stuff. I want to hear what y'all are doing. And I just want you all to know just how grateful I am for you, for your work. And I hope that I will, you guys are practicing the one thing I've been saying, it's almost a cliche now, right? Which is self-care, right? Because we need you. We need you to be doing this work, and it's long work. This is not work that's gonna be done in 2 years or 3 years or 5 years, right? This is generational work. And so now, especially during the pandemic, we need you. So I hope you're practicing that self-care.
Thank you so much, indeed. Great. So it is my pleasure to turn the mic over to Melanie Ogleton with Cardea Services. She serves as the Chief Strategy Officer there. Melanie?
Thank you so much, Jennifer, and thank you, Dr. Burke-Harris and the Aurora team and fellow grantees for this opportunity. As Jennifer highlighted, I am Melanie. You could go to the first slide, our first slide, please. As Jennifer highlighted, I am Melanie Ogleton, Chief Strategy Officer and Project Director for Cardea's ACEs Aware project. What an honor to both represent our team on this amazing project and for the chance to showcase our Journey to ACEs Integration Project, which is what we're affectionately calling it. Many thanks again to you, Dr. Burke-Harris, and the Aurora team for the opportunity. Special shout out to Teddy for the support, also greatly appreciated. While I know we would love to be in your presence, Dr. Burke-Harris, we are extremely grateful for the opportunity to connect even virtually in this moment. And in light of the fact that Zoom fatigue is real, I can only imagine what your Zoom schedule looks like in this moment. Next slide, please. So a little bit about Cardea before we jump in. We are a national women of color-led nonprofit organization. We have offices in Oakland, California. We also have offices in Austin, Texas, Seattle, Washington, and a growing presence in the DC metropolitan area. Our vision and mission are presented on the slide, and in light of the focus of this project and ACE's work overall, I also wanted to share our belief that organizations thrive by integrating principles of equity and social justice into all aspects of their work. Next slide, please. Joining me today are other members of our ACEs Aware team, our beautiful project family. Pictures are on the slide. I'm pleased to have the support of our president and CEO, Wendy Nakasukasa Ono, our training managers, Beatrice Reyes and Shaylee Kleindinst, our project manager, Lily Pinto is on, and our evaluation manager, Noma Wobilar. I am so grateful for their support and look forward to their contributions later in the session. Next slide, please. So For Cardea, the ACEs Aware project represents so much of what we aspire to in all of our work: to lead with strength and resiliency, and to center community member voice and wisdom. In our context, community members are the individuals that will be supported by the work of all of our partners to integrate ACEs. Language and terms have meanings, so we lead with words that honor the relationship building aspect of this work. We aren't treating, but we're uncovering, we're learning, we're discovering, we're seeking to understand a journey, to lead with what happened. Ultimately, we are guided by our desire to harness the power of love, acceptance, and humility. Again, we all have a story and a journey. We also understand that ACEs doesn't begin nor end with a clinical screening, but takes a team-based systems approach. So you see this guiding principle reflected as well. And in the end, it's about collective humanity. This quote from Desmond Tutu really resonated with our team to drive home this point: my humanity is bound up in yours, for we can only be human together. Next slide, please. So here's a quick overview of our ACEs Aware initiative components. We're supporting the ACEs Aware project through the provider engagement component. Specifically, we're implementing a network of care and peer-to-peer learning activities and developing 2 practice papers. Special thanks to our amazing community partners. We have a tribal health focused provider team working with California Rural Indian Health Board, tribal health programs, and California Urban Indian Health programs, and a separate provider team with representatives across the La Clínica de la Raza Health Services system. When we were given the opportunity to revisit our planned approach in light of COVID-19, we noticed the significant project coverage in Alameda County, which was our original focus area. The projects are amazing with so many bases and areas covered. So we paused and thought, where can we best fit in? So with our eye to equity and justice, we noticed whose voice of representation could be enhanced and went from there. Because we're involved in many areas related to Indigenous health, this felt like a natural collaboration point for us. And we also have a history working with La Clínica on other public health focused projects, and admire the work that they're doing to integrate ACEs and look forward to supporting them on their journey as well. Next slide, please. Why the reference to ACEs journey? Well, we're traveling with our partners on their own journey to integrate ACEs and are doing this with 5 steps or stations that you see here. We're starting with a foundational introductory session focused on making the case for ACEs integration, traveling next to a focus on centering community member voice and wisdom, moving on to a focus on systems design and readiness, stopping to define and elevate the important role of evaluation in defining success, and completing our journey by helping our partners finalize their ACEs integration plan for the long journey. We visualize a road, like we're working on some branding elements, and a road has come up. So we're going to try to find some way to integrate that. We were fortunate in that we didn't have to do too much pivoting in light of COVID-19. Most aspects of our original design assume virtual implementation. So we are implementing our roadmap using a blended approach. We're doing on-demand e-learning modules complemented by facilitator-led working sessions. Our 2 practice papers will be driven by the experiences and content developed during our roadmap activities, with our hope that at least one will take on a toolkit-like approach based on our roadmap content and lessons learned from our partners. And next slide. I can't tell you how much this project means to me, and I am making it about me for just a second. I was raised by a beautiful woman, my mother, who navigated her own mental health challenges for most of my life. I took care of her from the age of 15 for 30 years, and I wouldn't trade my journey for the world. I lost her almost 2 years ago to the day, November 22nd, and know that projects like ACEs would have been critical in her life. While she was fortunate to eventually get the help that she needed, that didn't happen until she had a team of providers who changed the focus from treating her mental health challenges and other symptoms to really understanding her journey and what happened to her. She was an amazing woman, and now she's my greatest ancestor. So I do this work in honor of her and others like her. So on behalf of our team and with gratitude and respect, thank you again so much for your time, Dr. Burke-Harris. And that's it for our slides.
Thank you. That was great. Thank you. What a beautiful tribute to your mother. Dr. Burke-Harris, would you like to share some thoughts and reactions to what you heard?
Yes, yes. First, I want to say thank you for sharing your personal connection to this work. I think that many of us, if not most of us, have a strong personal connection to this work. We have the folks who we are doing this work for.
Absolutely.
And I think that makes our work stronger, to be honest. So I thank you for that. And the first question that I'm really curious to hear is that what are you hearing in terms of your community member wisdom to apply to this work? Yeah, I'll start there.
Yeah, I'll start, and Wendy, Lily, the team just jump in, but I think we're hearing some tension around where to begin, right? So I think for a lot of our partners, it's been, okay, let's start with screening. So I'll speak to, our more health services partner first. It's been, let's start with screening, but then the so what? So we screen, we uncover what happens. So for them, this project is hopefully going to help create some systems of support. So what happens to really wrap your arms around that person in need of ACEs related services to just create a continuum that's not so fragmented. So for them, it really has been trying to take a pause and figure out how to approach this thoughtfully. For our tribal health partners, there's the historical trauma context that's always front and center in that work. So it's like we've been dealing with ACEs, we've been dealing with historical trauma. What can we do to, again, create that system and that synergy around this work to be there for people that need the help and support? And I'll pause and see if anyone else from the team wants to weigh in.
Thanks, Melanie. Yeah, I just wanted to add to that. I think that another challenge folks are facing too is, not just where do we begin, but who do we begin with within our organization? Who has the most capacity, especially in this moment, to really engage in the ACEs integration work? Who has the time, but who's willing to put in the time? Who is going to be able to make the biggest impact? So we have been thinking about how to do that in sort of like these smaller ways with smaller groups to really start the conversation going so that the conversation can spread throughout the organization. And so we're hearing that as well. And I just wanted to add that note. If others have comments too, feel free to jump in.
Wendy, I think you were unmuting. We couldn't hear you, so no. Okay.
And another it's a question that I have is so I know that you're doing your work is around provider engagement, right? And how are you? And so you're working with I'm assuming primary healthcare providers in Indian Health and La Clínica de la Raza. Is that correct?
Yep, it'll be it's a team. So there's there'll be the providers, there'll be community health educators, just the system of support that's involved with ACEs.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of the conversation about has the conversation about roles come up, like around what is the role of each member of the team as you're engaging in this work?
So our the first session in our stop along the way, right, is focused on just that. It's about who's doing what are you doing? What happens to a person when they come in your system? I think they trip, I think we'll uncover. We haven't had our first session yet, but I'm sure we'll uncover that for the most part, it's screen and refer, right? It's like, okay, let's go to the behavioral health team, but we really want them to just unpack what their approach looks like, who does what, who's on first, what does the system look like? You know, what are you doing that you can leverage and that's already so amazing and uplifting that we can elevate in this opportunity?
And then my other question is, so the so what question, right? The screen and then so what? How have you all been answering that question?
That's a good one. I think we're still answering it, right? I think it's like right now we're in this discovery phase where we're trying to like, what are our partners so what's, right? Like, okay, why are we doing this? So when our module that focuses on community member voice and wisdom, it's like, let's reground and remember why. Like, what are your guiding principles for this work? What is your so what? And I think that we're going to spend some time deeply uncovering that, so that it's not just a process or a tool, but it's like to make meaning of the work and what their long-term goals and aspirations are here.
Yeah. And to what extent have the tools that we've been put forward through ACEs Aware been helpful, or what would be more helpful?
Yeah, I feel like I've been talking so much. So Lily, B, Wendy, if you can, I don't know if your audio is working. Do you all want to chime in on that one? Happy to keep going.
Sure, oh, go ahead, B, please go ahead.
Oh no, sorry. Yes, so this will be quick. I think one thing definitely in the grand scheme of things is also recognizing the work that the providers or the partners are already doing, seeing how to strengthen it and not also overburden them with more work. So making sure that we're tailoring all the different approaches to really fit their needs, what they need now, and also making sure that they're also taking care of themselves as well during this time while everything else is going on in their lives.
Yeah, if there's one thing that if I can kind of throw in a few words of wisdom, if it's helpful, it's, it's really interesting, because I think the so what piece, I think is really crucial. That's the answer, because the purpose of screening is not just to know, it's to know so that we can, because hopefully when we know better, we do better, right? And when I say that, I mean all of us, every part of the system of care, right? That when we know better, we do better. And one of the pieces that I think is really important as part of this work is that it can be, what I've seen as one of the biggest challenges is that when we identify ACEs, when we hear someone has experienced ACEs, as providers, as helpers, as healers, right? We all want to kind of rush in and fix everything at once. And that was kind of why I asked the question about roles, because what I've, anyone who talks to me will hear about what the research shows, what the literature shows, and the consensus report from this, that, the other. But I will say, in my own journey of learning about ACEs, beginning to screen for ACEs, developing clinical protocols, doing all of this stuff, I think one of the pieces that was really important was to extend to myself and for my team, for all of us to extend to ourselves the same compassion that we want our patients or our clients to have for themselves, right? To recognize, just as we know for our patients, that we're not going to snap our fingers, make one change, and everything is going to be different. But it's a journey, and it's a journey towards healing. And it's about recognizing it's kind of, like when you read the ACE study, you feel like you kind of wake up, right? It's a little bit like the Matrix, where you took the I don't know which pill it was, the red pill, right? Where you just like, oh my goodness. And then you just see it everywhere and you see how it impacts. And so a couple of things that are really key And one of the things for screening that I think is really helpful for healthcare providers, I think many healthcare providers miss opportunities for patient education, intervention, support for patients who don't have neuropsychiatric outcomes, right? So for example, as a pediatrician in my practice, if I had a patient who came in and they had 6 ACEs and they had asthma, but they didn't have any behavioral issues, right? Often it was really hard to see. It was really hard to see that that could be having an impact on their health until we did the screening, right? And then when we did the screening, we recognized, oh, we need to supplement whatever it is that we're doing for this patient, for their asthma management. We need to supplement that with interventions that are intended to help to regulate the stress response. Right. And that's where some of the recommendations around sleep, exercise, nutrition, mindfulness, mental health, and healthy relationships come in. And just incorporate that into our care. And then also helping the families or the adults or the children that we're working with begin to see and make those connections for themselves. Because I think that as we start off in this process, the one thing I would want to share is, like, I remember in my practice talking to families about ACEs, and they say, okay, and then they've got other priorities. And then 2 months later, or 6 months later, or 18 months later, they come back and they say, you know what, I've been noticing, I've been making that connection. And I am noticing that when X, Y, and Z happens in my household, that these outcomes. And so some of these things, as we put them into place, are not going to happen overnight, but recognizing that as we are, putting in the systems in place that help our patients, that help us as healthcare providers, and that help to coordinate the systems of care as mental health providers, community supports, to reduce the dose of adversity, enhance that buffering wherever it is, whether it's a mentor, whether it's a dance class, whether it's an African drumming class, right? Like whatever it is. Right. And really be able to make those intentional connections. And then over time, I think that's when we see improvements in outcomes. Absolutely. Those are great tidbits. And I've been told that we're going to move on. So I will shut up.
There's a rigorous timekeeping process happening behind the scenes here. Melanie, Wendy, Lily, B, thank you all so much. It's really, really great to hear from you. And of course, thanks, Dr. Burke-Harris, for your insightful comments. This is going great. Next up, we're going to hear from Gary Taylor from the Raise Foundation. Gary?
Hello, there we go. Hello, everybody. Hi, we are presenting today on provider engagement grants, specifically network of care. May I have the next slide, please? Okay, so my name is Gary Taylor, and I am the program director for the Raise Foundation. We convene Orange County's Child Abuse Prevention Council, and we've done so since 1974, about 6 years worth of doing this. For those of you that have not heard of them before, child abuse prevention councils are multidisciplinary community councils by the California state legislature to coordinate and collaborate the community's efforts in prevention, detection, medical treatment, and legal processing of child abuse and neglect cases. What's really cool about ACEs Aware Grantee is that, or being a grantee, is that there's several other Orange County ACEs Aware grantees that are a part of the Orange County Child Abuse Prevention Council, namely the Orange County Department of Education and the American Academy of Pediatrics Orange County chapter.
Hey Gary, your audio is a little bit off. We're just gonna turn your video off to see if that helps.
Any improvement? Does that help at all?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. So yeah, I was just saying that two other members that are part of the Child Abuse Prevention Council are the Orange County Department of Ed and the American Academy of Pediatrics Orange County chapter. So those members are Pamela Kahn and Jamie McDonald. For the purpose of this grant, the RAISE Foundation is collaborating with the Chicago School of Professional Psychology. And I'm joined today by my collaborator, Regional Director John McPhee. John, did you want to say a few words?
Briefly, thank you for permitting us to share our ACEs Aware vision and experiences that are aligned with the RAISE Foundation and our partners. And real briefly, as I mentioned earlier, our name is not necessarily synonymous with Southern California, but we do have campuses in Los Angeles, Irvine, and San Diego. And really, to the ACEs Aware grant, we're the largest doctoral psychology doctoral granting degree institution in the United States, which allows us to work with a wide range of faculty members, many with primary areas of expertise that include ACEs and trauma-informed care. And as a nonprofit embedded in our DNA, is really a laser focus on community service. We're more of the faculty practitioner model as opposed to the research model. And in fact, our students spend about 1.2 million hours annually serving our communities through practicum, internships, and volunteer work. And now many of them are ACEs prepared, which is very exciting for us. And so really this year, thanks to this generous ACEs Aware grant, we've aligned our efforts with those of the esteemed California Surgeon General and have moved ACEs and toxic stress education to the forefront of our community-based efforts. And we will share more about that as we go forward.
Okay, I switched over to another source. There's a nice picture of me growing up. Sorry about that. Yeah, so like we were saying, we've been working on trainings in person. That's one of the primary kind of conditions of the Child Abuse Prevention Council. It's to encourage and facilitate trainings of family serving and child serving professionals on the best practices at county and state level. CAPC has previously conducted in-person trainings on ACEs and trauma-informed care at the Melinda Hoag Center for Healthy Living and at University of California Irvine campus with Dr. Holly Magana. And while these trainings were very well received and longer in overall length, our largest in-person training received about 50 attendees, and we were averaging just a little bit over 20 per. And that transitions nicely to this slide. Since then, we have increased our numbers a bunch. So since the beginning of this cycle, our collaboration has produced 4 online trainings, technically 5 if you include the one we produced yesterday, with attendance numbers far surpassing what we were able to produce in person. The success is in due large part to work changes associated with COVID-19, work from home orders, and then just accessibility of online trainings. So just real quickly, wanted to go through some of these. You have the Recognizing the Nature and Extent of Prejudice with Dr. Gerardo Canul. That one had 473 attendees. And John, I think you maybe wanted to say a couple words about that one.
In addition to reaching our provider audiences, some of our trainings are highly targeted based on community need, and they may not be of practitioner age yet, but we're really trying to pull a grassroots approach and prepare people for the future. The Los Angeles Kings junior hockey team became aware of our ACEs training, and they have had many incidents that they've experienced last year on bias and prejudice, and they wanted us to train their 400 to 500 team members and families. Many of them attended this first lecture with Dr. Canul, and we'll be taking our ACEs training directly to them to educate the teens on the importance of what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, I know I have to speed up a little bit, so I just wanted to really quickly touch on understanding neurobiology of trauma. That was the largest training we've had to date in terms of overall attendees, CEUs distributed, and that was also the largest group of providers that we'd reached. We believe it's in no small part due to the higher nature level of the topic as opposed to the kind of general ACEs awareness and prevention workshops. Next slide, please. So real quick, just parameters of the trainings we've done. So we're conducting 1 training per month. Each of those trainings can facilitate up to 1,000 attendees per. The conclusions of our trainings include course evaluation and compulsory quiz, both of those required to receive CE and CEU credit. We conduct activity polls at the beginning and throughout trainings to get a feel for audience background, familiarity of topic. They're moderated by Danielle Borer, who's fantastic at engaging the audience and priming our presenters and trainers. Allocate anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes for Q&A. And trainings that had large volumes of questions in the chat box have actually yielded future kind of opportunities for us. So that's been really good. Just a quick snapshot of numbers. We've had approximately 1,836 training attendees from July 2020 through October 2020. We've distributed approximately 1,000 continuing education unit and CEs. And these numbers do not reflect that just yesterday we conducted a follow-up training for our ACEs awareness and prevention workshop. So there are additional numbers through November. John, did you have anything on this slide?
No, just, I think in the interest of time to keep going. I
Okay.
think one of our trainings, I think it was vicarious trauma, caught the attention of the California School Nurses Organization, and they have arranged for us to present in their annual conference to 500 to 600 nurses is their estimate. That will be happening in February.
Next slide, please. Okay, I'll finish up. I know I don't have too much more time. So with our grant, what we did in July, we had no idea what was going on. A lot of our service delivery changed from what we initially proposed with grant to post-COVID. So we kind of cast a wide net with our initial trainings to figure out what would captivate providers and what our competency is in Orange County specifically for ACEs and trauma-informed principles. So starting with that, we're kind of honing in on a more specific audience. We found that attendees seem to understand ACEs from the theoretical or academic standpoint, but incorporation of the principles into practice and identification of community-based resources, specifically local ones, seem to still present challenges. Raise Foundation and Chicago School recognize families and communities together, family resource centers, as a key component to include in the screen, treat, and heal process that the initiative highlights. Families and Communities Together is a public-private partnership program of the County of Orange Social Services Agency. FRCs, Family Resource Centers, are geographically proximate, culturally informed community hub sites that are designed as tools for prevention. They serve diverse language needs, and they must be accessible to all community members. The focus of an FRC is to wrap families and children in the support they need, adhering to protective factors framework by providing referrals, linkages, case management, ability for community members to tell their stories during CMT, no-cost behavioral health services, parenting classes, life skills workshops, legal advocacy, and basic need provisions like food distributions and baby formula. These FRCs are just really logical pieces in a referral pipeline that we envision as a part of our network of care. I believe during the June or July monthly call with Dr. Burke-Harris, she actually discussed pediatric or primary care providers as a key provider group to hone in on due to reduced stigma about going to see your doctor for an annual visit. As someone that used to work at a family resource center, I can attest to that. There's reduced stigma for seeking the services there. In fact, community members typically start the stories of what's going on with the information and referral specialists, which would be the very kind of frontline person. So even before we're at case management, the INRs typically have an idea about what's going on at home so that they can refer the person to the most appropriate service. Our collaboration, the Chicago School and the Race Foundation, will train all 16 Families and Community Together Family Resource Center staff beginning in January 2021 on ACEs and trauma-informed principles, what that looks like at an FRC level, and what are some of the barriers to additional provision of care. We envision Orange County referral pipeline from provider post-screen to the most appropriate and most proximate family resource center. Like I said, currently 16 of those throughout the county. Some of those are already directly connected to medical groups. For instance, South Orange County Family Resource Center and Czech Family Resource Center their lead agency is Mission Hospital, which is a subdivision of the St. Joseph Heritage Healthcare Group. Next steps for building our network of care are starting at Manzanita Park Family Resource Center. That's located in Anaheim, specifically the 92801 zip code. We've sent out our first MOU with Family Health Matters. They're located in Anaheim as well, and that's a network of medical and behavioral health providers. You'll be happy to know that all of their staff has already attested and they've gone to the ACEs Aware core training. We'll additionally be collaborating with the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Anaheim and Higher Ground Youth and Family Services. We envision the pipeline existing for every major medical provider in Orange County and getting them directly connected to the most fitting FRC. Next slide, please. That's it. This is our contact information. Apologies for the technical difficulties and this incredibly goofy picture.
Thank you so much, Gary. Appreciated the presentation. There is a question about whether your trainings and your sessions were recorded. Like, are you making them available on a website, or are they live sessions?
So they are currently live. Oh, John, did you want to answer?
They are live. If anyone would like to join or distribute to their group, please send Gary or myself an email, but we do have the recordings and we're building out a site for convenient access.
Excellent, thank you. Dr. Burke-Harris, you want to share your thoughts?
First, I want to say congratulations. It's very exciting. It's great to see what you guys are doing. And I did have some questions. One of my first questions was, what are you hearing in terms of the questions and feedbacks that you're getting from your trainees?
Yeah, so it's funny you mentioned that. So with the ACEs and Prevention workshop, that was the one that kind of illuminated where we were as a county. So they all loved it. They were all really engaged. And then John, I don't know if you can attest to this, but what did they say at the end? Oh, where can we find the screening tools? And are these available in languages other than English? And you're like, oh, got it. So we definitely still have some work to do. So that's kind of the point about, I think they understand ACEs. They know what ACEs is. They acknowledge that it's important, but we're still missing the direct connection to the tools that everybody needs and what's the best practice for implementation specific to Orange County.
Okay, that's helpful. So wait, I want to follow up on that. So and the trainees who took the training are primarily psychologists or mental health professionals. Is that right?
So we did
psychologists, you know, that are from the BOP, psychologists, and BBS, either MFTs, LCSWs, or LPCs.
Okay.
And some of our events are including, depending on the subject matter, a fair number of medical professionals as well.
And so that is my, that would be my next question in terms of how have you seen that connection have you identified any key learnings about points of connection between our mental and behavioral health providers and our primary care providers in terms of addressing ACEs?
Well, I think a lot of these mental health professionals are now, based on these trainings, armed with the tools to better assist their clients with great understanding. And we're getting significant feedback to thank them for the help through these trainings. You know, it's an educational institution. It's not all about just degrees. This is what we have to do to train our community to be prepared for situations such as these.
Also, if I may add, the interest in, I guess I'd call them the abstract. So the topics that are connected to ACEs, but the new. So what does ACEs look like in the age of COVID-19? What is ACEs in the face of prejudice? How does implicit bias connect with ACEs in a way? So these kind of, I guess, questions that are not easily answered that maybe had not even been asked before. I think that's the other piece where the medical provider as well as the behavioral health provider is really keying in on those types of topics.
Yeah, that's a question that I've been getting quite a bit as well. And I think that it's helpful. I can tell you how I've been answering it if that's helpful to you at all.
Very incredibly, yeah.
Yeah. So I think one of the things that we recognize is that ACEs are risk factors for toxic stress, right? The prolonged activation of this biological stress response and then the long-term changes that go along with that. And but they're not the only ones. right? They're not the only risk factors for toxic stress. And actually, as part of the ACEs Aware initiative, we are working to develop some papers with researchers who are experts on toxic stress to talk about how things like exposure to racism and discrimination are also risk factors for toxic stress. And it's interesting because when we, I think that when we talk about ACEs, a lot of the time the people recognize that ACEs lead to biological consequences. But then when we think about how we're responding, the question of, it gets to a little bit of, well, how do we implement that? How does that really work in terms of the next step? And so when we look at the definition of toxic stress from the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine, what we see is that the prolonged activation of the biological stress response occurs in absence of adequate buffering caregiving systems, right? And then leads to these long-term changes. And so when it comes to something like COVID-19, right? We see that adversities are increasing and that access to buffering caregiving systems is being more limited because of the necessary precautions to address the pandemic. And so we can see that the risk of toxic stress is almost undoubtedly increasing. Now, the challenge that we have is that there is no clinical diagnostic criteria for toxic stress, right? And so that's why when we look at the ACEs Aware, the clinical algorithm that was developed by the team of experts, multidisciplinary experts on ACEs and toxic stress, it's assessed in terms of low risk, intermediate risk, and high risk of toxic stress, right? And then when you look at the clinical responses in terms that go along with low, intermediate, and high risk, there's no way to say definitely you have toxic stress. You can say, you know what, I think this patient likely has toxic stress, and so I'm going to treat it, right? Just like when you as a physician, when I see a patient and they have a cold, I'm not sure exactly which virus it is, but I'm pretty sure it's a cold, and let me tell you what you can do about it, right? And I think that and so that, in terms of the questions around the role of the pandemic, the role of discrimination, one of the things that I think it's really important, and I think this group is a great one to share this with, is that it is actually very, very important for us to be clear about about what we're identifying, what we're treating, and what we are and how we're characterizing things. Because, for example, one great example is that I get lots of questions, lots of sometimes a little bit obscure questions. And, one of the questions I get not infrequently is, what about homework? Kids are so stressed out with all this homework nowadays. Is homework the risk factor for toxic stress? And, some of the question that goes along with that is, okay, well, let's look at the data. Does the data show that, for example, the amounts of homework that are associated with, that kids are kind of routinely exposed to, so there are things that will activate the stress response for sure, right? But are we seeing systematic data that is telling us that there's a clinical outcome, right? Is this leading to long-term clinical challenges? And that is key, because our ability to make policy and set clinical practice is based on the strength of the evidence, right? And when that's part of the reason why, one of the questions I get all the time is, hey, how come discrimination isn't one of the ACE criteria? And it's like, the CDC didn't evaluate it initially, right? So when we say an individual with 4 or more ACEs has 4.5 times the risk of depression, when we throw in discrimination, that analysis is no longer valid, right? So we lose that. And so we have to look and say, this is why I think that there is a tremendous need for clinical diagnostic criteria for toxic stress. That's one of the really important pieces, right? And but also it's really important for us right now to have the discipline to say, okay, ACEs, we're talking about these 10 categories. When we're talking about discrimination, when we're talking about COVID-19, when we're talking about other things, we're talking about additional risk factors or potential risk factors for toxic stress. And that we're really precise on that, because the more precise we are, the more we can make the case for the state of California to make $150 million investment. Like when I go to the governor and I'm like, I need $150 million for ACEs Aware. And here's why. Because the data shows that here's the relative risk of heart disease, here's the relative risk of Alzheimer's, here's the relative risk of this. And these numbers are, and anyone who works with me will know what word is about to come out of my mouth, unimpeachable. Unimpeachable. No one's ever going to come back and say, hey, what was your methodology? Oh, you didn't do it right, right? Because the strength of the work that we are doing, the strength of the foundation that we are laying is based on the strength of the science. And so when we are rigorous with our science, then that allows us to be able to make these significant investments without worry that it's going to be undone or unraveled as someone pushes and tests. Because I will tell you, people right now, I am getting a lot of criticism where people are saying, oh no, you shouldn't be doing that. And fortunately, you know, at every point in the game, I can say, no, here's the science. And, you know, it really is, you know, unimpeachable. That was a long answer, but everyone who knows me knows that I'm hardcore about precision. I'm sorry.
Yes, thank you so much. I think that was a really helpful reminder and learning for many of us. Next, we're going to turn things over to Jennifer Nielsen at Lake Family Resource Center. Jennifer?
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So inspiring to be here with you. So inspiring to already see the great work of the 2 grantees before us, and to hear us in the mix, sort of in different places. And also just inspiring to hear you talk, Dr. Burke-Harris, about this great work. And I've followed you for a long time and listened to you for a long time, and am just so excited and honored that Lake Family Resource Center got the communications grant that we got, and that we are here today to talk about this. So let me just tell you that I have an amazing team here with me. Edward Castro, Sharon Maher, and our executive director, Lisa Morrow, are on the call. So when we get some questions, hopefully we'll all be a part of answering that. We're a little community, a little county that is north of Napa and San Francisco. And in our county, we have the largest natural lake. And it's 100 miles around our lake in our county. So just to give you a little idea of, we have a lot of we're mostly rural, and we serve this entire county, wanting really badly to safe, sustainable, and healthy families and communities. And so, and then our mission to strengthen our community one family at a time. ACES just fits so well with that, and it's something we've already been doing. So if you could go to the next slide. So what are we doing? We already had a radio show in place, but we took the radio show, and Lisa was so kind to say, just take it over with ACES. And we're like, okay. So as soon as we could, we started highlighting each all of the information in the toolkit. We've talked about toxic stress. We've talked about the ACEs themselves. Anything we can do to educate the community. That's what we've started with. And we've gotten a great response, and we've started our quarterly newsletter. You can see a copy of it here. And I believe the link is live. Is that right, Sharon?
On a PDF, yeah, on a PDF copy, yeah, you can click it and it'll show the whole newsletter.
Okay, so you might be interested in that. So we highlight, everything that we do and on our radio show, but we get the community involved, and that is the exciting part, is to have them call and ask us what's going on. Tell me more about these 10 questions. And it's so interesting that Dr. Burke-Harris talked about the way that we unpack this for people. People are like, well, I want to know all about it right now, and we're giving little spoonfuls. We are offering the information, but it's a lot of information, and it can be, you find out you have an high ACEs score, you start to make connections, you start thinking about how that's impacting your parenting or your relationships and your relationship with yourself. And then, oh my goodness. So yeah, we open some things up, and Lake Family Resource Center is here to help when people are ready. So we're raising awareness through our social media, our Facebook. Next month, we'll be doing our podcast on YouTube. So we're very excited to start that process. That's new and exciting for us, and then make those available not only to and the community. We already have done some presentations with our big networks of care, and they're excited. We're excited. The biggest thing we hear is what next? Once I do this screening and I determine that they're high risk, what will I do? And so Lake Family Resource Center wants to be a part of that. What will we do? What will I do? One thing I want to highlight at the bottom in our masks at the bottom is we were chosen by our employees as a family-friendly agency during COVID. Really, really leaning into the conversation about what it takes to be flexible with our clients if we can't be flexible with our employees while they're also dealing with COVID, work, parenting, dealing with their kids at school virtually, and all of the other issues. Next slide, please. So when we got to talking, we really, as what we wanted to present today, we can't overlook that we have been doing this for 25 years. It's our 25th anniversary. We have grown incredibly in that time. We have 15 plus programs. And really what you're seeing are words that are the philosophy of Lake Family Resource Center, but also our principles and our values that we ask all of the teams and every individual to commit to when they come to work at LFRC. So there's a lot there, but it really, the way it fits so nicely with trauma-informed care, what ACEs is, how we help families, children, and adults improve their lives. Let's face it, we work with a lot of people who have high ACEs scores, a lot of trauma. If we just looked at the trauma that our community has been through with the recent fires that really blew up for us in 2013 and haven't quit, just the trauma from that, just the experiences of our kids and our parents, and what happens to us collectively as a community when we hear sirens, helicopters, we see smoke, we're a network of people that are quick to say what's going on. So next slide, please. So we really strive to not only meet this agency philosophy, which I don't necessarily need to read for you guys to understand, but when we look at what we've done in our numbers to the right, and the different programs that we engage in, it's all about relationship. How do we have a relationship with our community and our families so they trust us, so they want to come and talk to us, so that, you know, will they allow us to advocate? Will they go forward with that referral that somebody made for them? So we are a trauma-informed agency that takes that part seriously, because we want to be able to do this work forever, right? For as long as we can. And we know if we don't have that piece of self-care and knowledge about ourselves, what's my score? And how am I going to deal with my stuff so that when you talk to me about your stuff, we're both going to be okay and we can move forward in a safe and healthy way. We've seen in our agency all of the impacts, I think, that could come to bear, right? So we work with abused children. Then we work with the family on the other side. Maybe they come into our shelter. Maybe there is sexual assault, domestic violence. You know, we work with those people. So we really feel strongly that we are meant to do this work, that we already have a network of care in place. And what's our next step? Next slide. Just wanted you to see quickly our partners. And then the last slide, please. So as Lake Family Resource Center moves to continue to do this work, our next big step is to be able to be a provider that our healthcare, our doctors, and anybody who needs to refer to us can, if somebody has a high ACEs score. And I thank you so much for your time. And I can't wait to talk with you about this.
Thanks so much, Jennifer. Dr. Burke-Harris.
Oh, this is so awesome. I can't tell you guys how much joy it brings to my heart to hear about each and every one of these projects. And I wish that I could hear from every single one of our grantees. Like, I don't know, does anyone have anything to do until next week? Like, let's go. It's really joyful. And I love the idea of the radio show. How did that come to be? And I'm sure you get all kinds of questions, but I'm incredibly curious as to what people bring to the show.
Lisa, do you want to talk about when the radio show started?
Yes. Hello, Dr. Burke-Harris. Thank you, and everyone. My name is Lisa. I'm the executive director for Lake Family Resource Center. We started our radio show, oh goodness, a couple of years ago. Actually, that's probably been 3 years or so ago. And the idea of the radio show is to, number one, showcase the programs and services of Lake Family Resource Center, because as you can see, we do a lot. But in addition to that, to really get a broader reach on our community, we have presenters that would come in. The local Motherwise program would come. Our local First Five was on our show at one point. Just most of the local fire departments, during the fire times, CAL FIRE, whatever we thought would best serve our community. And that was entitled Family Strong. And then when this opportunity came up for ACEs Aware, we thought, wow, what a natural transition into communications around ACEs in particular, and how it fits in everything Lake Family Resource Center does. So the ladies have just kind of taken it over, and they've done a great job. Ladies and gentlemen, pardon me, Edward, have just taken it over. So it's really been a great tool. We just got off the radio at 3 o'clock today before this, and it was all about our senior center and, you know, holiday stress and that sort of stuff coming up. So it's been a great asset to our organization, and in particular now the ACES program. So.
And I'm really eager to hear, how are you supporting self-care for your teams? Because I did note that piece about being a great place to work, especially during the pandemic, which has been, you know, a pretty stressful time. And we recognize that for all of us, right, in within our organizations, that when we're talking about the experience of ACEs, we're not just talking about the families that we serve, we're also talking about, you know, within our organizations. So how do you support that self-care for your staff?
Well, Lisa,
provide some answers to that also when you're done, Jennifer.
Okay, I know, Lisa, one thing I would always say on the radio is, we're going to talk about neuroscience now. Here we go. You know, here's why. And then we do. So really, the way that our agency works, each program supports everybody. And so we talk about what we do, what we offer. We have a wellness task force that's budding and becoming, you know, so it's things like post your pictures of you and your pet, post pictures of, share things that you think will be amazing for your staff. And this year, one example is, usually the admin does a thanks for giving breakfast where we make breakfast for all of the frontline staff. And it is so fun. It's, you know, it's a lot of bacon, it's a lot of food. Lisa makes these coffee drinks, but we couldn't do that this year. And so we ended up with, you know, little gifts, little motivational cards, you know, things to let people know we're thinking about them. We wish we could be together. So it's that, and then it's a lot of talk about how to combat stress. And I'm going to let Sharon talk a little bit.
I just wanted to sort of speak to that as a team member, that you know, since I started working here, some things that were incorporated a lot was we did. They trained the staff on trauma-informed practices that included pieces about self-care for case managers, and they did supervisor sessions. Also, it was with a company strategies. And so we had all been, the whole agency, Lisa made time for people to do it. It could be on work time, opened it up so that people can attend these trainings. And then what was really impactful for me to be able to continue my self-care during this year was the flexibility that they gave. You know, I have a child, and so there's that issue about a kid and my job and all of this stuff. And I think it's one of the reasons why staff picked the agency for the award that Jennifer brought up, is because it's really about, I feel, since I've started working here, that we embody what we say, and we do what we say, and we model what we're talking about, and we do it for ourselves, our staff, our teams, because and this is my words, not the agency's, but I feel, because the agency's, you know, realizes that if we really want to make the impact, then we have to do it. We have to be it. We have to understand it. We have to model it. And that's where the impact comes in. Like you're saying, it takes time, but if we as an agency are prioritizing that, then, you know, it can help. It's like, let's help bring that out to the community by showing it through, you know, our family resource center. Let's show them. So as a team, I have some staff, but I am a staff, all of that. I feel like working for this agency is an agency that I hadn't had it before, because they really do what we say. Those core values are because it's the core of who the agency is. And we prioritize that for our staff as much as we do for, you know, the community that we work with.
Thank you. It's amazing.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, Jennifer and team. Thank you for all your great insights. All right, last but not least, we have about 20 minutes left. We want to make sure to hear from our fourth presenter. Wanda Davis from First 5 Contra Costa County is with us. Wanda, welcome.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
All right. I want to thank you guys first for inviting us to be part of this fabulous spotlight. We're just so honored to be here with the other grantees, and we really want to acknowledge that. First slide. So here's our slide. I'm sorry. Well, I just wanted to say that we have designed our grant as a partnership with the key stakeholders listed above, our Department of Health Services, which includes behavioral health, the Alliance to End Abuse, the Children's Leadership Council, Trauma Transform, and our Employment and Human Services Division. This strategy was purposeful for us to use our collective impact to further engage our community in becoming ACEs aware and to build a trauma-informed network of care. This has been central to the high demand and interest we're seeing in our grant activities. In this group, there are senior members, and from what they do is they're very engaged in this process from the ground up. It's a very participatory group where we design the grant together, we implement the grant activities, and to ensure that it's a county effort and it's reflective of what our county needs. We call this our design team. We knew from hearing from line staff the importance of seeing and feeling that their leadership is highly engaged in this with them. There needs to be an agency culture shift embraced by all. And as we move along in our grant activities, the design team meets regularly to plan, advise, and reflect on the successes and challenges and share what they're seeing from their pockets in the county. So what we're going to do today is share with you our 2 recent experiences with our 2 provider engagement grants and share how we're using our communication grant to amplify these efforts. Next slide. Our kickoff network of care convening was a 4-hour event. The theme was starting with self to transform our system of care. It was intentionally structured to model trauma-informed principles. It included wellness components like music, movement, and mindfulness exercises to model self-care, and also to just settle our own brains and bodies to be present for our shared experience. We used breakout rooms to build social connections, and we had a keynote speaker who we had mutual learning from and who built a mutual understanding for us all. And the theme was, who do you want to be and embody for the community we serve? We then had a panel of peers who provided examples of practical applications on conducting screening, and also how to adopt a trauma-informed approach. There were nearly 200 folks there from across our county, and they rated our components of our events as highly beneficial at a rate of 97%. Our convening also served as the recruitment ground for our peer-to-peer sessions, which just launched this past month. Next slide. All right. So I just want to talk a little bit about these peer-to-peer sessions and how they've been formulated. They are called TILTs, Trauma-Informed Leadership Teams, and they are formed by 2 cross-sector regional groups that are done by West Central in our county and East Central. Our medical community felt strongly that they could not do this work alone. So they did not want the peer learning sessions to be solely comprised of health providers, but to be a cross-sector representation reflecting a comprehensive network of care. These groups are led by Trauma Transform, who is an expert in creating trauma-informed systems. The participants are being taken through a change process. They're learning best practices. They're exploring examples of successful networks of care, and they're receiving tools and resources while building relationships. We have limited the number of our cohorts to 50 people per cohort due to our own capacity, but we've had to turn away folks. So we're trying to figure out how we can also engage them in other parts of our efforts. We continue to learn through our evaluation process that our attendees particularly appreciate having a dedicated space to disconnect from the daily grind of their work and our go, go, go culture. They hunger for time to pause, connect, and focus on designing a community approach to addressing ACEs, and that's what we're providing. Inside the TILTs, we have formed even smaller pods of support. We call them peer support pods. And they meet on their own between the TILTs to reflect on their learning, to deepen their organizational relationships, and to meet other champions within the work. The message they receive is that they are not alone. So what have we been learning? Next slide. We've been learning that our providers, they get the why, they understand the dire consequences of not attending the ACEs and the toxic stress early on. They want to know how to be trauma-informed personally and systemically. They want a secure base to screen, refer, and stand on for themselves and for the individuals they serve, so they can be part of a healing network of care that does no harm. A network is about relationships. And our staff, what we've heard from staff is that they sometimes feel isolated in their work and they feel on their own. In my peer support pod, the behavioral health provider said, I don't think primary care folks want to hear from me. And the primary care provider responded, I want to hear from others caring for patients. It's important. So we need to have more conversations like this in our county. Being trauma-informed happens at different levels. We must attend to the individuals, the agency culture, and the system connections. There's a need for the organizations to build a framework for supporting their providers so the providers feel they are acting responsibly, they're feeling confident in screening, and they feel helpful about having access to a referral and resource network to lean on when needed. So the other thing I would say to you guys is to be intentional about the virtual spaces. We have found that the breakout rooms are great places for folks to feel safe, to have candid and meaningful conversations and uplift issues that they're concerned about. Additionally, because of technology, it can be so challenging. As you all know, having Zoom experts to support our sessions has also made lives so much easier. So let's talk a little bit about the strength of our county network, our design team. Our design team has a lot of trust in each other. We've done that by being transparent and sharing the responsibility for our vision. We are leveraging our individual strengths and our resources. Our health department lead, Erica Jensen, identified the best time for medical providers to attend our events and got approval for the clinic's start time to change to ensure full participation. Our partners are just not only informing the work, they're in the work with us, they're on the ground making it happen. We're a unified county team whose senior leadership supports these efforts, which is a key ingredient to our success. Our first 5 team has a strong communication component to it. They design our network brand identity, our communication format, our marketing plan, and our messaging strategy. And then they test that with our partners. We lean into our network strengths. A message again is that you are not alone in this. An example is First 5 developing the outreach communication and our partners then adding their personal message before sending it through their own networking channels. Therefore, the folks who receive them are more likely to open them, to read them, and to show up for our events. By using a trusted messenger, they're more likely to take their lead from. It conveys, this is important, pay attention. Similarly, we are tapping into our recognized community spaces to broaden our reach, like the Contra Costa's ACEs Connection page, again, using our strategy of leveraging existing community strengths. We will use that space to tell our county stories about and for providers about the journey to becoming a just and healing system of care that's working to cut ACEs in half in one generation. Thank you.
Thank you, Wanda. Great presentation. Dr. Burke-Harris, what are your thoughts?
Wanda, thank you so much. And by the way, I remember coming over to share and present with to your teams. Gosh, that was like years ago.
Yes.
Now, and it's really good to see you again. I think the first thing that I want to ask is, what you're doing. It really sounds amazing, cross-disciplinary. Really, really robust. And my question for you is, what is your biggest challenge?
I think our biggest challenge has been just really, it's really just been getting people to not feel so afraid to move forward in system building and in doing the screening itself. People are worried about doing damage to folks, so they really want to have the support of a trauma-informed network of care to be able to lean into. So I'm really excited, Dr. Burke-Harris, about the fact that you're creating the toolkit for that, because I think that'll be really very, very beneficial to everybody in our community. I think another thing is just logistics sometimes. We work really hard as a design team we meet monthly. So we meet monthly. with behavioral health, with our healthcare system lead, all of those folks that I've had that are there on the first slide that I showed, they're really active participants. So it really helps to minimize the challenges that we've had. I mean, we've been very lucky that our health system sends out our requests to their network of care, to their health plan, to all those communication channels to bring in the health providers to our events. So I think we have a really good mixture of folks in there that really makes it beneficial for all concerned, because they can lean into each other and hear, like the behavioral health person saying, hey, do you guys really want to talk to me? And hearing, yeah, we do. So really it's helping to create that connective tissue. And that's really important, I think.
That's fantastic. You know, one of the pieces here that I made a note of is this piece around using trusted messengers. And as you all have endeavored to do that, even in terms of tailoring the messages so that you can deliver the message, what have you been like? How have you selected your trusted messengers in terms of you know, sending those messages out?
We've had a long history of working with these partners before this grant. We were already doing, as you noted, trauma-informed practices and working on that level of care in our community already. So we know these folks. So our behavioral health is our children's mental health director. These are people in senior positions that have access to not only their own organizational base, but outside of that. And that they have demonstrated their ability to do that. So as they have sent out messages and we've seen the response, we've continued to use that formula for the activities that we're engaged in.
Nice. Thank you. This is awesome. It's really exciting.
Yeah, you know, honestly, one of the things that keeps the folks coming back to our events is that notion, I think, that we just heard from the last presenter of self-care. Folks are really like, oh God, another, you know, Zoom event, another, you know, webinar. But when they left, they said, wow, this was really gratifying because we got to practice some self-care. We got to pause. We got to hear an inspirational speaker that really spoke to us, being that we're the folks who can create the change. It starts with us. Dr. Burke-Harris is great, and she's going to help us get there, but we have to take lead charge of our own communities. And so I think they could hear that message that resonated with them, and then having the activities that let them take a deep breath and to pause and to just focus and disconnect from all the other things that they're having to attend to has been really beneficial. And they tell us that in our evaluations. We love that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for all the great presentations. We have just a few minutes left, and so I'm going to take the moderator's prerogative and call on a few people to ask a couple of questions for Dr. Burke-Harris from the audience. Stacy, you are up first, and you had a really great question about the network of care roadmap planning. I'm going to let you ask it. I think you're going to be taken off mute shortly here.
Thank you. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Fantastic. Well, what an honor to get to ask Dr. Burke-Harris a question directly. I'm curious if your forthcoming roadmap will include recommended strategies that include the interoperability of systems alignment to then support your roadmap's approach.
Short answer is we're absolutely working on it. Yeah, that's what it's about, and that's what we've charged our network of care subcommittee to really look at some of those systems of interoperability, particularly when it comes to, you know, integrated primary care and behavioral health and community referrals, and looking at some of the technology supports that can do that. But are you thinking about something in specific that we should be thinking about?
I am constantly learning as I integrate all the best practices that are out there, and we infuse that into our trainings. But a lot of the things that seem to be sort of top of mind best practices are around data sharing and ethical integration and accessibility of data. And then that sort of occurs in two directions, right? Cross sector in terms of provider to community referral, and then provider community referral to patient. So there's a sort of private pathway and then a public pathway that needs to be considered in terms of all kinds of privacy laws, HIPAA and FERPA and all kinds of things, and entanglements.
Yes, well, please don't hesitate to share any thoughts or considerations with the team at ARERA. But that is exactly what we are looking at and thinking about.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Stacy. We might be following up with you. Next is Nicole Payne. Would you like to ask your question, Nicole? You should be unmuted shortly here. There you go.
Yeah, my question is what are your thoughts when you hear people say that it's great as professionals that we're talking about this, ACEs and toxic stress, but how do we really get this out to the community?
Thank you so much, Nicole. It's a great question. I will tell you, I am an impatient person. And, one of the things that I would love to see is a public education campaign about ACEs and toxic stress. But I wanted to speak a moment about sequencing, because, and there's lots of questions around doing this in a way that has the most potential for benefit and minimizing the risk for harm. One of the things that we were very intentional about in California is beginning with our healthcare providers, because what we didn't want was to raise awareness among the public, and then the public goes and says, oh my goodness, I've experienced ACEs. What does this mean for me? And they go and talk to their doctor and they say, you've experienced what? I don't even know what you're talking about, right? So we said, you know what? We're gonna start with our healthcare providers to make sure that our healthcare providers have the training to be able to respond when the general public comes. And then once that has some legs under it, then our next step is to work on raising awareness among the general public so that folks are armed with that information. But there was definitely a very thoughtful sequencing of these events.
Great. Thank you all so much. We have just a couple minutes left, and I can't resist doing a couple quick advertisements for upcoming events. Lily, do you want to pull up the last slide? So we have a webinar coming up. So this, we have our grantee webinars that you all are participating in today. And then we also have our initiative-wide monthly educational webinars. And so the next one that's planned is coming up on Wednesday, December 2nd. And we're really excited because we designed this webinar to really focus in on ACEs and maternal health, and trying to really target maternal health, child health providers, OBGYNs, et cetera, just in real hopes that we can engage that part of the community and into understanding and engaging in the initiative a little more robustly. So we hope you'll take the time to join, and please feel free to spread the word about it. And then Nadine also mentioned that we have a grants RFP coming up, and hopefully in early December. And there was a mention of that in our ACEs Aware in Action newsletter that went out on Monday. So if you'd like to check that out, you can get a little bit more information about that next grant opportunity. And I think much of the conversation today really is a direct and great tie-in to the plans that we're making for the next 6 months or so. With that, I want to thank all of our excellent panelists, and of course, Dr. Burke-Harris for her beautiful insights and helpful educational information as well. What a great session. And I really want to just wish you all a good rest of your day. Thank you all so much. Any closing remarks, Dr. Burke-Harris? Yeah, please go ahead.
If that's okay.
Yes, of course.
The one thing I wanted to say is that I know this work is hard, you guys, and I'm grateful to all of you for your flexibility, for your persistence, for your creativity in moving this work forward, especially during COVID-19. And, you know, we worked hard to give this initiative enough structure so that people don't feel like they have to completely reinvent the wheel, but at the same time, enough flexibility so that we can be learning from your best practices, from your experiences, from community voice and experience. And I want to make just a quick note that our Surgeon General's report on adverse childhood experiences and toxic stress is hopefully going to be coming out in December. So that'll be another resource for all of you. And it really takes a very cross-sector approach. But the last thing I want to say is that y'all heard me on my soapbox about rigor and all of that kind of stuff. But the thing that I want to be clear about is that when I say that, it doesn't mean that you have to be a scientist or you have to be a doctor or you have to be a mental health professional to be part of the solution. Every single one of us has a very, very, very important role to play. And I'm really grateful to all of you for the work that you do every day to move this work forward. Because as we heard, you know, Dr. Dave Burke-Harris may give a speech here or there, but y'all are the ones who are on the ground doing the work. I'm so grateful for you. I believe that we can do this. And I believe that the way that we do it is together. So thank you.
Thank you all so much.